The prophet Jeremiah is unique among the prophets of the Old Covenant. His book is the longest of all the prophetic books in the Old Testament. He was celibate. He had no wife or children, which was quite unusual for Jewish men in his era. And he had one of the longest prophetic careers, spanning 40 years. 40 years of being a prophet. And like the 40 years that the children of Israel wandered in the desert wilderness, Jeremiah's 4-decade mission was often bitter and difficult. He prophesied in the final years of Judah before the destruction of Jerusalem and the deportation of the chosen people to Babylon. Again and again, Jeremiah warned the people about their idolatrous ways, and he urged them to make an about-face, but to no avail. The people often opposed his message, treated him cruelly. His prophetic mission was often a burden to him, a weight, something that exhausted him and that he really just wanted to give up. But he found himself unable to surrender it. The Lord had called him to this prophetic ministry, and he could not evade that calling, no matter how hard he tried. Occasionally, though, the Lord would give Jeremiah a respite from the hardship, a moment of consolation amid a bitter ministry. And one of those moments of consolation is described in our first reading. The year is 588 BC. Zedekiah is the king of Judah. He was the son of Josiah, who was a noble king who had rediscovered the Torah and urged reforms so that the land would be purged of superstition and idolatry. But Zedekiah did not follow in his father's example. Rather, against the pleading of Jeremiah, he entered into an alliance with Egypt to ward off the invading Babylonian army. And so Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, began a siege of Jerusalem, which would ultimately last 30 months. Can you imagine that? 30 months of a city being sieged. But at this point in our reading, it had been going on for less than a year. And Jeremiah had warned King Zedekiah to surrender to Babylon, give up the city. The Lord had delivered Jerusalem into Nebuchadnezzar's hands, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. So do not resist. If you resist, you're only going to bring more death. But Zedekiah did not listen, and he imprisoned Jeremiah in the guard's courtyard of the king's palace. Jeremiah was too pro-Babylonian to be trusted, and he was going to be spreading all of this nonsense about we need to surrender, so he said, no, I'm just going to imprison you in the courtyard. And while Jeremiah is imprisoned, the word of the Lord comes to him that his cousin Hanamel is going to arrive and ask Jeremiah to buy his field from him. And just as the Lord said, Hanamel arrives and urges Jeremiah, please, buy my field in Anathoth, for you own the right of inheritance and redemption. Buy it for yourself. What Hanamel is referring to is a law found in Leviticus. When a person owns a field or a property, but they're not able to maintain it anymore, their closest kinsman gets the first offer to buy it. They have the right to make that first buy so that the field stays within the family. So Jeremiah does buy the field. And we get a very detailed description of all of this. He weighs out 17 shekels of silver. These are not coins, by the way. Coins did not exist, were not used at that time. He's actually weighing out ingots of silver. So he's weighing out 17 shekels of silver, and he gives this amount to the cousin to buy the field. And he signs and seals the deed in the presence of witnesses. The original deed is sealed to prevent fraudulent tampering, and then a copy is made that's an open copy so that it can be inspected. And we get all this description in our reading. but this is all that he did. Jeremiah really wants to go about this the right way. He wants to make sure that everyone knows that he's buying this field. He's weighed out the proper amount. He has the original sealed copy. He has a copy that is open. And he even puts both the sealed deed and the open copy in an earthenware jar to preserve it from the elements so that it could last a long time. So why is this scene in the Bible? What is the significance of Jeremiah buying this field and going into this great detail about the sealing of the deed and then the copy and storing the copy? It kind of seems like it's a scene in a movie that's really detailed and then you don't know why it's in the movie. What's this all about? In fact, this scene is one of the surest signs of Jeremiah's optimism in the face of impending disaster. Jeremiah knows that Nebuchadnezzar will be successful in besieging Jerusalem. It will take him 30 months, but he will do it. Nebuchadnezzar will break through and capture Jerusalem and destroy the temple and deport King Zedekiah and all the nobles of the land into Babylon. And the people of God will enter an exile from their chosen homeland that would last for 70 years. The future is grim. And yet, by buying this field and storing the deeds in a jar where they will last, Jeremiah is indicating to himself and to all the people that he knows that eventually things will turn out for the better. He knows that eventually the people will be allowed to return. The temple will be rebuilt. And someone in Jeremiah's distant relations, more than 70 years from now, will be able to have this field because Jeremiah bought it and kept the records and kept it in the family. That's playing the long game. Buying this field is a symbolic action, a symbol of hope. Despite everything that's going to take place, all the tragedy that will befall the chosen people, God will work things out for the best in the end. As Jeremiah says, "Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, houses and fields and vineyards shall again be bought in the land." That was the greatest fear that the chosen people had, that after they were exiled, that things would never be the same, that things had gone so horribly wrong that they would never be able to recover. Life could not go on as it had before the disaster. And what Jeremiah is doing by buying this field is conveying to them the message from the Lord that life will go on. Houses and vineyards and fields will again be bought in this land. You think that this is such a disaster that you're never going to recover from it. Life can never go on again. But God is saying life will go on. You will buy houses and live in them. You will buy fields and till them. You will buy vineyards and tend them. You will go about your life the way it was eventually. Life will go on. You can recover. And so what is true for the people of God at large is also true for each of us. However grim things look for us, whatever changes happen in our life, however disastrous, there's always a future for us, a future that is safe in God's hands. You may feel that something has happened in your life that is so disastrous that you'll never be able to recover from it, that you won't ever be able to keep on living. But there is no change that is so catastrophic that it cannot be redeemed, either in this life or in the next. Sometimes we say when something really awful happens, things will never be the same. And sometimes that is true, like when a loved one dies. Things will never be the same. But that's not the same as saying life can't go on. we'll never recover. We can never move forward from this. Those are two different things. And so what this reading from Jeremiah encourages us to remember is that no matter how grim things look, no matter how disastrous the changes in our life, whatever happens in this world, in the church, in our world, in our country, no matter what happens, there is no change that is so disastrous that we cannot recover from it. There is no problem that is insoluble for God. Life will go on. He still has something good for us. We can move forward. Houses and fields and vineyards will again be bought in the land.